Everything works. I've just streamed another stream before, so really it should all work, but we'll see. I'll just have a quick click around just to see whether that is indeed the case, and then we can start. So looking to see, yeah, it looks like it's all connected somehow, so I'm assuming it's all working, and then we will just go for it then. So, okay, I haven't streamed for a while. Of course, we had the huge hiatus with Typhoon in Far, which interrupted the super final, although there was an interesting in-between match between Keris and Komodo. Just quite interesting seeing the same Sufi openings being played by two other strong engines and seeing what they make of it. Actually look completely different to the Stockfish-Leela match, which yeah, is also quite interesting somehow. But yeah, we've carried on since. Actually had 3 games basically since we started. Since we probably the last time I streamed. Yeah, looking good, absolutely connected there. So we'll have a quick look at a few of those, and then afterwards we'll carry on. This game looks very interesting as well, actually. So actually, maybe let's start with this one, just get a little grip of this one, and then afterwards we'll have a look to see how the others have gone. So okay, so we started with e4, d5, e takes d5, queen d5, knight f3, and now this very unusual move g6, which apparently has been played by Artemiev. So yeah, I mean, a very strong player, of course. So and not silly at all. I mean, you often play you often see lines with knight c3, queen d8, and then afterwards you go, you know, g6 and bishop g7. So it is well known, but yeah, this move knight f3, of course, is a slight subtlety, just leaving the queen on d5 and keeping the option of actually playing c4 and d4 rather than playing the knight to c3. So let's just have a look at this game. d4, queen d8. I mean, in the Leela game that happened, Leela played extremely aggressively with castling queen side, h4 to h5. Looked like a very nice plan, but somehow, I don't know, I mean, yeah, again, we had a big discussion about this in the chat, but Leela was playing really, really fast, and you have the feeling somehow that maybe a little more thinking might have unearthed an extra resource. You never know. But in any case, Stockfish managed to give back the exchange. Not the first time we're going to say that. We've said this in the super final, and I get the feeling not the last, but gave up the exchange in order to, yeah, I suppose break Leela's attacking momentum, and then managed to play, you know, sufficiently actively to hold the draw. It was quite comfortable, actually. I mean, you know, Stockfish seemed to have really pretty good play for the exchange in the end. So Stockfish here plays something completely different to Leela, which is quite interesting. So bishop e2, a very, very quiet line here. I mean, simply aiming to get, you know, decent control of the centre and claim a slight edge, but a slight edge with an evaluation of 1.12, which is quite significant there, really. Leela on 0.43, and Leela doesn't go for knight f6, interestingly enough, but plays e6 and knight e7, which is definitely on the unorthodox side. So c3, b6, a5. I mean, Stockfish just really going for this queenside positional play, and yeah, it's a very solid, sensible system, really. But just you'd expect it more from Leela than from Stockfish, really. a6 played, and now bishop f4. Just a good developing move. Bishop b7, knight bd2, castles h3. Again, very controlled from Stockfish. Extremely restrained, you know, and knight d7, queen c2. But yeah, I mean, this is the sort of play that you'd expect. You know, if as a human player you're playing somebody you know, stronger than you, and you're just keeping it, you know, tight and solid. So Leela starts playing some unusual moves here. Rook fe1, again very obvious moves from white, and Leela b takes a5. I mean, really quite surprising how Leela can take quite committal decisions like this with virtually no time taken. I mean, b takes a5 is a hell of a decision, really, you know, and taken after something like you know, a minute or something. Because the point is, after b takes a5, yeah, white doesn't take back with the rook on a5, obviously, because then we'd have c7 to c5. But white plays just knight b3, and you're just going to take back on a5 with the knight. And well, I mean, this knight on a knight on a5, if it goes on there, it's attacking b7, c6. A little bit annoying for this bishop on b7. It's just irritating pressure, basically. So bishop d5, rook ed1. I think protecting d4 and getting ready to play c4, just to chase away this bishop from d5. h5, which is a move that, well, I mean, you know that Leela plays it in this specific position. Again, I find it slightly hard to explain why you really need h5 at this moment, but presumably Leela doesn't, yeah, is in a sort of position where you're just saying, well, against any move that you play, I've got a counter, so I'm just going to play a useful move, and just playing this move h5 again. Is it useful though? Not sure. I mean, I'm not. Am I? I mean, it gives the king an escape square, but it also gives g5 to white. It's a strange move. I'm not 100% sure about it, to be honest. Just checking the PVs. Was Stockfish expecting it as well? Stockfish was expecting it as well. So, yeah. What can I say? It's but a little bit strange. A little bit strange, to be honest. I thought. I didn't really understand what Stockfish was aiming, what either Stockfish or Leela were thinking with this move. c4 played, and now bishop takes f3. Bishop takes f3, rook b8, and now we can go rook takes a5. Obviously, c5 no longer possible for various reasons. I mean, the rook on b8 is hanging, but also, you know, the rook in the meantime has lined up on the d file here. So you know, you'd also have d takes c5 and this attack. Queen c8, defending the pawn on a6, and now white played bishop e4. Yeah, I mean, if I had to, you know, if I was asked to give your assessment of this position, I'd really say this looks, you know, very much like a clear advantage to. You know, to white, I have to say. I mean, after all, I've got more space, you know, more central space. Pawns on d4 and c4. My pawn structure's better. I've you know, black's got this weak pawn on a6, which looks like a target. Yeah, two bishops, more space. Yeah, what could? Why on earth should black have? You know, have any sort of real hopes here? And it's quite interesting, very interesting that, you know, looking at Leela 0.31 and then looking at Stockfish 0.87, neither engine is particularly excited about it. And yeah, interesting point as to why not. I mean, I think what both engines are anticipating is that white's going to have a few problems with this d4 pawn. So, you know, knight is attacking it, bishop's attacking it, a rook can move to d8, and yeah, I mean, this pawn is going to be under attack. And how exactly do you defend it? I mean, if you've got various options. I mean, if you take this knight, then you are definitely helping to defend this pawn. But then the black queen manages to come out to b7, and all of a sudden you've got this b-file pressure. You could move the pawn up to d5, but then you've got the line of the bishop. This bishop is opened, and the rook is active on the b-file as well. So that'll be other sorts of problems. And I think it's something like this somehow, that it seems that black's got quite a bit of counterplay against the d-pawn, and any ways that white chooses to try and counter that, then black gets, you know, other counterplay. It's like squashing jelly, you know, you press down on one side and then one other side pops up. But it's not obvious to me, you know, that this is really the case and that this counterplay is really worth it. But yeah, I mean, looking at the engine evaluations, that does actually seem to be the case. So let's have a little look at the PVs, and we'll have a little look, see what both sides are saying, who's thinking at the moment. It's Stockfish, I think. So let's just lock that, and let's have a look at what they're looking at. So bishop d2 from Stockfish, I guess rerouting to c3, just to give that d4 pawn some support. A little bit of a shame though, because you know, on f4 the bishop was restricting this black queen side, and now it's yeah, it's sort of proving a supporting role. But you know, this bishop on c3 also covers the pawn on b2, so yeah, it's really anticipating you know, any sort of counterplay here, or managing to access the b-file. Now what we see quite a bit is this move knight h4, which is surprisingly awkward for white. I mean, if you go bishop e2, then I go queen b7, hitting g2 and also the knight on b3. It actually wins a piece. So white's got to allow this exchange of the knight for the bishop. But then after takes, another clever move from Stockfish. Takes, and we're starting to exchange off pieces here. I mean, there's still the weakness on a6. There's still a lot of quite a big space advantage for white, but yeah, I mean, I think, you know, white's left with minor pieces that aren't really threatening for the black king, it looks like. So queen f4 attacking f7, queen d7, rook c5, c6, and yeah, I mean, this is a sort of position where you feel, you know, probably, you know, black should be able to make a draw somehow here. The pressure against the d-pawn keeps white's pieces a little restricted. I mean, got to watch out, because I mean, in this sort of position, black's a little bit passive, and well, you know, you could get hit by g4 and opening up the king side. So you've got to be a little bit careful about this. What's quite interesting is that Stockfish is looking just at this way of getting counterplay, give away a pawn, and then that opens a file, and then put the rook there. And yeah, I mean, Stockfish seems to feel that this is going to be enough counterplay. I guess because the rook on e4 is well, rather awkward defending the pawn on d4. So yeah, white's activity is not fantastic. Although, you know, I mean, certainly if I was black, I'd be thinking about ideas like rook g5, you know, moving the rook over here and playing g4. I mean, it looks quite, yeah, looks like it needs to be taken seriously in any case. But interesting PV there from Stockfish. We'll just unlock it, and well, it hasn't changed very much, to be honest. Looks like this is pretty clear. And then let's just have a look at Leela's PV, see how similar that is. Yeah, I mean, exactly the same, basically. Leela's also, yeah, I mean, slightly different defense there, but Leela's just thinking that that this is going to be just equal. And again, Leela giving up a pawn, but yeah, just keeping itself together, really. And yeah, I mean, this is just going to be a draw, this PV. So yeah, I mean, you always look at the differences. I mean, rook d7 is the lines. Sorry, not this rook d7, but where was it? Yeah, this rook d7 was the difference, but yeah. I mean, I don't think this is going to make. Sometimes, you know, with these lines, you see that that Leela's intending to play a different move to Stockfish. You think, oh, is there something tactical? But I don't think so in this position. Really, I think it's just an equally good defensive move here. So I would have thought here that we're, yeah, strangely enough, you know, just looking at these lines, we just seem to be heading to a drawn position, and I find that quite surprising, I have to say. Yeah, certainly looking at the position, you know, just at first glance, you're really thinking, well, this can't possibly be just, you know, sort of equalising for black, but it seems to be, you know, just. The engines amaze you all the time. But I mean, it's always, you know, it's always quite small margins, really. I mean, I think if White had an extra move and had played g3, then you could just move your bishop back to g2 and you'd be absolutely fine. It's really very specific. It's due to the fact that this bishop gets hit by knight h4 and you can't retreat the bishop because of queen b7 hitting g2 and b3. This is the reason why we can say that this is equal, you know, but a pawn on g3 and the situation will be completely different. So, yeah, very, it's engine chess, isn't it? I mean, it's really, sometimes it's really precise and really relying on details somehow. Okay, I mean, let's have a little look just at some of the other games then, because this one is going to... to last a little while, and I think we've already seen the main variation. So what did we have here with well, this game was obviously the one that was manually adjudicated. I think we're all pretty comfortable with that. And then we got this game, which was very interesting, I have to say. Unfortunately, a draw again, so for my openings, but yeah, what can you say? It's just the way that it is. I think there were two pretty interesting games. I mean, why did I select this line? Yeah, again, I was looking for a French, but I think Jeroen's done you know, fantastic job mining the winner in the past season, so I didn't want to go there. And I wanted to have a look more at the French Tarrasch, but in the French Tarrasch, there's so many lines that are just worked out to equality. Knight f6, c5. I mean, really, it's. I mean, you know, and of course, you know, they're lines that you, as a human, you wouldn't necessarily want to play all of them. But the engines really do seem to equalise quite easily. And then I saw this idea that's been played by the English IM, Alan Merry, who's yeah, pretty inventive guy, really. You know, good tactician, and has some unusual ideas. Some very dodgy, and but some more interesting. And this was just you know, very, very flexible, really. You know, the knight comes to e7. You can play g6, bishop g7 as black. You could still play the knight to g6. You could play d takes e4 systems, or you could play for c5 systems. I mean, in my test games, you know, with Komodo and Leela, I was getting all sorts of different structures. So, you know, I sort of thought, well, you know, this is quite interesting, and got quite a few, yeah, you know, sort of equal number of wins and draws, basically. So, yeah, you know, I thought it sounded quite promising. Not the highest book exit for Leela, you know, 0.32, but yeah, you know, I thought that there were still possibilities there. Yeah, I mean, in my practice games, funnily enough, Leela did not want to allow this typical French structure, this closing with e5, and was always playing d takes e4, which was also one of the reasons why I chose it, because it seemed like we were going to get quite a different game. And Stockfish was actually playing g3 a lot in this position, just to put the bishop on g2. Again, you know, very unusual, very interesting. But as it was, we got actually the same approach from Leela and Stockfish. I think this was one of the early openings that I chose. So I think I tested it on Stockfish 13, the release version even. So yeah, that was quite a while ago. But yeah, they both chose b6. E5, C5, C3, and I also had this in my I think in my test games as well, and this seemed quite interesting. I mean, it's one of those slow French openings. Maybe not a slightly better version for black, maybe. But really, it's one of those openings, structures where over the years, Leela certainly tortured Stockfish Classical in these. So yeah, seemed quite an interesting one to have, and I think it was a decent choice. So after A5, yeah, in the other game, Leela was playing its typical idea, H4 to H5, which looked pretty promising, but somehow didn't lead anywhere. But here, Stockfish played something completely different, which I'd also had, funnily enough, in a test game between Leela and Stockfish. So in this game, Leela was playing like Stockfish, and Stockfish was playing like Leela. Actually, the whole game up to move 14 was exactly the same, and the contours of what black did were also quite similar. So crazy, really. How do you plan for that? So knight c6, knight h5, quite a nice move there, stopping the bishop on f8 from getting active, and looking for g6. I mean, just to create a little hook on the king side that you can then attack with h4 to h5. Very typical maneuver for white in the French. b5 from Leela, castles, b4, and h4. Yeah, and this was actually one of the Leela Stockfish games I had. Let me see. I was looking at it not so long ago, so maybe I've still got it to show you. Is this the one? Should have had this prepared. Yes, there we are. So let me just, I'll just grab that. Copy game. Let's see whether that works. Just give me one moment. Paste PGN, import. Is that going to work? Sorry, indeed. Looks like it works. So let me just switch to the correct screen, and then you'll be able to see the wonders of that as well. Castles, so f4. Yeah, so this is a game, Leela Stockfish. So this is the Stockfish from 15th of April 2021, and this was Leela 27.0. So castles, c4, Stockfish played, so very early, but you'll notice that Leela later played c4 as well. Very interesting, isn't it? Because now I think we've been accustomed to seeing c4 as a huge strategical mistake, one that Stockfish Classical always made. And indeed, I mean, it is often true, but I think in these positions, what the engines are understanding very well is that just castling kingside is asking for to be targeted. So and you've got to find some counterplay elsewhere, and well, building up a huge queenside space advantage is a decent way of doing it, but it's obviously very risky because yeah, I mean, white's better developed. If the queenside opens, okay, black's got a lot of pieces in that area, but white's better mobilized. I mean, for example, both rooks can come to the b file, whereas only one black rook is really ready for it. So it really takes a lot of yeah, a lot of subtlety and a lot of anticipation from black. And again, it's one of those lines where I think yeah, you might think that oh, okay, this is what Stockfish recommends, I can play it in a game, but you might well struggle to get it right. I mean, it was like the game MVL against Napo in the candidates. I think it was the last game of the last round of the candidates before they were put on ice for a year. And I mean, actually, this was this whole MVL Nepo game was more or less an AlphaZero Stockfish 8 game. And I could imagine that that as black you sort of think, yeah, I'll be fine, I'll hold this fine if I play it. But then you come to the board and it suddenly seems so much more difficult and complicated, than it seemed when Stockfish was defending it. So I mean, these positions are quite difficult, and Yeah, I mean, I remember this game, and I was thinking after B3 that you're going to see a typical scenario where, you know, Stockfish has closed the centre, and then Leela is just going to exploit it beautifully, playing on both wings. But it didn't quite turn out like that. B takes C3, Bishop takes C3, H5, quite a shocking move as well. Rook 8, just waiting like this, but the idea is to go Bishop H6. You're just going to take off this this knight and maybe move the king round to G7. So Leela protects it, takes knight C4. Again, this looks incredibly yucky for black, is my feeling. But and here Leela goes G4 as well. So opening up the king side. So yeah, I mean black isn't really going to go king side, but a bit tricky to go queen side with the rook coming into B7. So I mean, this looked very awkward. I mean, Leela didn't actually win this in my test game, but I was sort of thinking, well, give Leela 10 times the processing power, and that this is the type of position that could actually go nastily wrong for black here. Yeah, in this game, Stockfish managed to hold it, but it was quite scary. Yeah, here Stockfish is starting to stabilize it, and it goes to 0-0. But again, it's a sort of thing where yeah, I said I don't have the TCEC hardware, so you sort of got to try and extrapolate and think, right, okay, but this looked very risky for black. Give Leela 10 times the processing power. This could probably end up in the TCC being quite awkward. Yeah, of course Stockfish gets 10 times the processing power to defend, but still, I mean, it seemed like an interesting one. So what did let's have a look. Let me get back to the right one. So what did Leela do? Leela played it a little bit more subtly, I suppose. Bishop E7, H5, Queen B8, just keeping the center open for as long as possible. But I think looking at the PVs, there was very often an acceptance, you could say, that the queen side was going to be blocked with C4 at some stage. But Leela was also keeping A4 to A3 in reserve, and yeah, I think with this move Bishop E7, what's Leela aiming for? Well, maybe someday for castles, or maybe even something like G5 and H6. I mean, look at those PVs. G5, just to in a way to close the king side, chase the knight away. Very, very complicated. I mean, yeah, these PVs were incredible actually. Leela was looking at a G5. Oh, this was Stockfish. Sorry, A4, A3. Really some quite bizarre PVs there. But to be honest, I mean, something like this, yeah, doesn't feel good for black to me. I mean, weak king side, rook over on H8. You've given away a pawn, but a knight's got a great square there. I'm not too happy about it. But still, this was the type of thing that Leela was looking at as well. I mean, we look at Leela's PV, and it's quite similar. It's I do find it quite strange in a way, because if you I've analysed a lot of French positions like this, and just always been very afraid that with a pawn F4 coming through, that do I really have enough counterplay? But somehow Leela just manages to just generate enough to keep white a little tied up. The knight's coming round to C6 to attack D4. And somehow, Stockfish doesn't feel that it can play that F4, so it starts defending D4 then, and when it plays F4, it hasn't got the rook on the F file. So, but still, I mean, these are still very complicated defensive maneuvers, and I'm I don't know, I don't know whether I could really expect to play these as black successfully. Knight e2 was played by Stockfish just to get out of that G5, A4 and Bishop H6, and yeah, Rook G8, Rook B1. So yeah, again, really complex stuff here. It's so B3 was played by Leela, quite unexpected really. I guess that if we play a3 that yeah, was Leela going to play c4? I mean, it's possible, and confused me slightly because for example, if you look at the PVs here, rook a1, Leela wanted to play c4, and then white could play a3. And I was really wondering about this. You know, is this really okay for black? I know Leela, that's right. Stockfish was thinking of blocking stuff up like this, and I know that's right as well. C4 here. So yeah, I mean, white could play the move a2 to a3, and then the queen side is blocked, where I thought that black wanted just the counterplay, and then we've got the king side open. But I guess you can look at it on the other way, that you say, well, the queen side is blocked, so I'm just going to move my queen over, and then I'll move all my pieces over to the king side, and that's, you know, that should be too narrow a field for white to really cause danger in there. But yeah, I mean, these are quite. You're always, yeah, I mean, always very nervous about this. You know, is this a good? Can I close, and then am I going to hold the king side, or is this one where it's just doesn't quite work? You know, it's very, very difficult to know. But as it was, we got this. Yeah, Leela just went for a3. Stockfish allowed it, and we got this position. Knight d2, stopping the knight from coming into c4. a4, why give away a pawn if you don't need to? Queen c2, knight b6, and this was one of those interesting moments. I mean, here Stockfish played rook takes b2, and it was Leela's main move as well, so I guess they're right, but I was kind of wondering about just playing knight f3 here. Just let me grab this this thing, and then I'll show you on the board what I mean. Paste PGN. Oh, good lord! I've just got. I don't know why that's going on to the second screen, but there we are. Import. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to play knight f3 here and carry on with knight g5. I mean, the idea is that, I mean, maybe you go knight bc4 or something, and I go knight g5, and, you know, before knight a3 happens, you've got to move the bishop back. And anyway, when you go knight a3, I'll take on b2. So, I don't know, I mean, for example, bishop e7, I go knight h7, knight a3, I go queen b2, takes, and then maybe, I don't know, I'm not sure, rook b1 or queen b1. Queen b1 is nice because after rook h8 I can go hg, you know, and if I go rook b1 and you go rook h8, then yeah, I'm going to have to start looking for, yeah, for tactical ways not to lose a piece. But I mean, queen b5 check followed by a5 looks dangerous. So yeah, I mean, maybe knight bc4 is better. That's possible as well. Knight g5 and then the same thing. Maybe this is better like this. Knight h7, knight a3. I have queen b2, you go knight b1, and we're going to end up, I guess, swapping off the queens there. But again, I don't know, I'm not quite sure about this one. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's nothing too special. Just felt like a move to me, really. But let's just have a quick look just at the analysis engines, because I haven't really looked at that. Let's have a look at Leela actually, because I mean, Leela was the one that was really very bullish about this. Well, Leela thinks it's better already. What does Leela think then? So Leela wants to play knight ac4. Well, let me go knight g5, unlock that. Wow, Leela. Leela just wants to take, and then just bishop e7. It's just claiming that it's going knight a3 and that my threats over here are not too dangerous. Well, maybe that's true. When you put it like that, the threats don't seem dangerous indeed. But interesting, really interesting. It's yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of conditioned to think that these C4 moves, any counterplay that you start with C4 is not really going to be so great, you know. But actually, it's yeah. I mean, it turns out to be really dangerous. So presumably, this move Rook B2 was indeed the best, and this was a very interesting position as well. You know, I mean, this move Knight B2 is incredible. I mean, I don't think. I'm not sure any human would dare to put the knight onto B2 where it can be pinned with Rook B1. But Bishop G5, Knight C1. I suppose the big problem for White is that these knights on E2 and D2, they're not really very close to getting to great squares. And actually, this knight on A5, knight on B2, they're covering access to D3 and to B3, which you know, obviously, if the knight gets to C5, then that's a lovely square. I mean, F6 would be another great one, but somehow it doesn't happen. And after Bishop G5, yeah, Rook A7. Again, Leela, you know, just we've seen this many times. I mean, we've seen Stockfish sacrificing exchanges all the time to hold inferior positions, and we're seeing Leela all the time, you know, navigating to an ending a pawn down but holdable. And yeah, this rook ending is not so difficult really. The rook, Leela's rook is much more active, and yeah, there's no real pawn breaks at all for White, nothing dangerous. So the game ended just in an easy draw there. But I don't know. I thought it was a very enjoyable game, you know, and I found it, you know, it did have a sort of tension and thrill, I think, to you know, who was going to be better there. Unfortunately, another draw, but yeah, that's. But again, you know, looking at it, so we did get one game that was, you know, it was similar to one of my test games, but obviously with engines reversed, which is slightly confusing. And yeah, again, you know, you notice that yeah, on TCEC hardware, so with many more nodes, and yeah, different versions of Stockfish, you're getting and Leela, you're getting yeah, quite different results from the test games. So yeah, interesting, you know, but okay, still quite varied, quite exciting, and yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, if you played 10 games from slightly different, you know, moments in the opening, I think you get a few wins in there as well normally, but just yeah, just not our destiny to get one here. So let's just go back to the main board, because I imagine that a reasonable amount has happened. Oh, not so much in actual fact. Has somebody been thinking a lot? Well, looks like Stockfish is, as always, is thinking a little bit slower. But has Stockfish come up with anything incredible here? In fact, no. All that we're seeing in the PVs is basically what we saw before. So this position and this position, actually, it's exactly the same analysis as before. Ah, there we are. Stockfish varying here, and looking at knight d2 instead of rook d3. Knight f5. Yeah, this is a yeah, interesting thing in actual fact. So the knight coming back to d2 to protect the bishop, and then the knight coming back to hit the d4 pawn. So inviting a repetition with knight b3, knight h4. So Stockfish looking to play c5 and defend the d pawn with rook a4. Bleh. It's not filling me with joy, I have to say. I mean, you look at this position and you think, well, Black's knights have really done quite nicely here. Yeah. I mean, I'd be a little bit nervous here about taking this on. Not that I do understand that bishop on c3 is a good piece. And yeah, I mean, you don't very easily have breaks against the white center, e5 or something. So, you know, but Black's kind of solid somehow, and very well entrenched. And if you sort of you can make a few mistakes, get passive, and then all of a sudden you've given away lots of squares that you didn't want to really. So yeah, that's a little bit, yeah, little bit worrying. But oops, sorry about that. Not completely clear, that one. I mean, just all these pieces, you know, pressure here against the white position. Okay, there's the a6 pawn, which is weak, but still. Not sure. But Stockfish definitely going for that. So that's interesting. That's keeping the game alive, because I think, to be honest, after rook d3, it would get pretty dead, I think. You know, those sort of exchanges, and yeah, I mean, the question always is whether, you know, in this resulting position, whether black's active enough, or whether white's, you know, got time just to fix the king side with h4 and then go g4 and that sort of thing. But you know, if neither Stockfish nor Leela are getting very excited about it, then yeah, then black's definitely always got counterplay. You know, there's always going to be enough then pawn on d4 to attack, and you know, and various stuff. So yeah, okay, but we've got oh, pardon me, been a long day. But okay, after knight d2, knight f5, there's still some still going to be some life in the position. So Stockfish thinking, yeah, again, Leela quite a bit ahead, but pardon me, not. I mean, Leela's sort of taken a reasonable amount of time there. I mean, that's not too bad. I do find that, or I'll have to check whether it's actually true, but my feeling is that Leela mostly insta-moves as white, gets excited with white, and then starts moving very, very quickly. You know, and it was an interesting discussion in the chat, you know, about Leela's time management, because yeah, I mean, in the previous game in this line, well, maybe I should just bring that one up actually. Cancel. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, let me just go to games. There we are, 31 games already. My goodness, it's still quite a close Sufi, so that's quite nice. But yeah, I mean, in this, you know, we've got to this position really, and you know, I mean, this is 14 moves. The book ended on move 3, so you know, we played 11 moves. This is super sharp. You know, there have been decisions along the way, and yet Leela's only taken 10 minutes. You know, and yeah, I mean, the question is whether this is you know, is this good or bad really? You know, and I think it depends a little bit. You know, I mean, obviously, if you spend more time, less time now, you've got more time for later. But I do think that I think, you know, especially in a Sufi context against Stockfish, I think you would expect it to be useful to spend more time in the opening, because you know, first of all, these openings are very sharp in general, you know, and unbalanced and challenging, and you know, but it's also, you know, that they're quite dynamic, I think, as well, the openings that we end up choosing. So I think you know, spending you really need to spend the time to get the maximum out of the opening, and if you don't do that, you know, if you've got 0.3 or even 0.4 at move 25, 30, then that's probably just, you know, it's probably not going to get much better than that. You're not going to outplay Stockfish after that, normally speaking, you know. But of course, you know, if you get the same sort of position against Rothschilder or Wasp, I remember the cup. I think it was a cup from last season where Leela won the game against. I'm pretty sure it was Wasp, and it was just completely equal out of the opening, and Leela just won this equal ending. You know, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, it's for that, you know, it's very useful to have time, but that's not really a scenario that's going to happen in the SuperFinal, I think. You know, so really from that point of view, in this specific context, I think spending more time up front, yeah, calculating more, trying to get the maximum out of the opening, I think that would probably be a better way than yeah, playing super fast and keeping so much time for the rest. But obviously, against other engines in different contexts, you know, a different time management approach could be useful. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what to do about that. But it's yeah, definitely. I think that that there must be some gain somewhere to be had from spending longer in the opening. Certainly for these super final openings, because. Yeah, you know, starting with you know, with something like 0.4, 0.42, 0.43, and then you know, you play all your moves in 10, 12 minutes, and then 15, 16 moves later, you're still only at 0.42. I mean, I think that 0.42 in the middle game around move 25, 30, that's worth so much less than 0.42 in the opening, because 0.42 in the opening, there's still, you know, massive more potential. You know, there's a whole early middle game to come, which is really where you can make the difference. Whereas, you know, 0.42 in the late middle game, you know, I mean, probably most of your chances have been extinguished by then. You know, and it's and the, you know, the parameters of the position are pretty fixed. It's just a slight advantage, but, you know, no real way to increase it, or not against you know, an opponent as accurate as Stockfish. So so interesting. You know, I mean, yeah, always nice having these chats. You know, and so many different types of people are involved in the chat. The devs often, you know, and so yeah, lots of people with good opinions, good knowledge. So always interesting to see that. But yeah, anyway, better than Leela being in time trouble all the time, of course. That's. But this looks, this position looks like it's got a bit flattened out, really. Yeah, Stockfish didn't go for knight d2 in the end, and sort of played rook d3 with a heavy heart, I think. Although it's looking to go g4, I can see now. So that's, I mean, actually, this PV of Stockfish's is pretty. It's pretty way out, really. Look at this one: King f1, Rook b6, g4, h4, Queen f4, c5, c6. So you can't take on c6 because of Queen f7. So grabbing the pawn, but unfortunately then it just gets normalized, and it just turns out to be just a draw, really. So yeah, you'd hope that there was some sort of latent danger against the king with this h-pawn and h4, but yeah, I mean, White's king is also not super, so you can pin the rook and then maybe get some counterplay against the rook on f3. You know, that's yeah, I mean, that's yeah, I mean, you sort of guess that Leela's going to hold this quite easily. But quite a nice PV attempt from Stockfish. But yeah, it's it looks like this position's got flattened out, and that we're going to get another draw in this line. Thank you, Moronocracy USA. It's the question is actually how often has how many times has Mr. Beads hoovered his house in this during this super final already? Probably a couple of times, I think. I mean, just want to have a quick look just earlier on, actually, because it did look quite promising, this, really. I mean, this is very, yeah, I mean, this is really very, this is really very, very solid from White. I mean, you can't really argue with what White has done. But what's, yeah, and this ridiculous move h5, and and then somehow black seems to be fine. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, frankly. Let's have a little look on the analysis board and we can see whether we can think of something. This was the other game, wasn't it? So let me just, sorry, I'll just pick up the PGN. And then imports. No, that didn't work. Curses. Wait a minute. Just do new game. Then let's just grab the PGN again, and then just try it again. Sorry about that. I'm fiddling around and looking useless. However, we are making it import. So, yeah, I mean, essentially, you know, after c4 takes rook b8, it just looks like, you know, all this convergence of black pieces somehow. Bishop g7, knight on d4. This whole convergence somehow, it's enough for black to hold the balance, and that white doesn't have a way of resolving this pressure satisfactorily. Rook a5, queen c8. I mean, yeah, d5 really makes this bishop incredibly active here. I mean, I'm not quite sure what black should do, but I mean, there are, you know, sort of moves like knight e5, for example. Obviously, queen b7 can also be an idea at times. Not now, but at times it can be. So, yeah, I mean, that's not too fantastic. And yeah, and if you go, I said this move bishop e4. I guess we go knight f6, takes on here. I don't know about gf. That might be possible, but I think even ef is possible. And then we're just going to go queen b7 and hit the pawn on b2. I mean, I could sort of imagine stuff like knight c5 for white, and you could maybe think it was better for white. I don't know, rook b6 and knight d7. I'm not sure, but yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's just you know, it's just not quite easy to break this pressure. So I sort of feel that you know, is there another way of was there another way of playing this that didn't involve c4? I mean, just keep this this solid pawn chain and do something else. And I mean, the obvious way to do it, of course, is to play knight takes a5 here. And then I'm not quite sure what black was intending here, because c5, d takes c5 feels a little bit awkward, to be honest. If knight c5, c4, then the question is whether these sort of tactics work for black. Actually, at first sight, they kind of do, I think. Bishop takes c2. It's actually quite annoying. And if I'm not winning a piece, then you know, this sort of pressure that that black can develop is not something I particularly want to face. So it looks like, I mean, could this be possible? It looks so risky. It really does. I mean, wouldn't I have a better move somewhere? I mean, b4, well, tempting, I'm not sure really. You could even consider this one, I suppose. Attacking the pawn on c3. Problem is, you know, just when this sort of thing happens, then black gets ideas like queen b6 attacking f2 here. And, you know, this knight is covering the e3 square. So, you know, it's really not so easy for for white to defend against all this. And of course, yeah, you know, c4, a1's hanging as well. But you know, maybe a move like queen b6 simply is dangerous because you know, I take check. I've got. I suppose I'll go king h2 there. I don't know, there's all sorts of moves, even knight c3. I mean, even crazy ones. I'm not sure, but I mean, you know, it just this feels a little bit awkward. But yeah, I mean, it's I don't know what your experience is of doing this, but yeah, I mean, whenever I'm calculating these, trying to wonder. I mean, the first step always for trying to calculate these lines is whether it's just trying to work out for myself whether what I really think, you know, the chances are that it turns out all right. You know, because if you sort of calculate that, if you sort of think that, yeah, I mean, a few lines might work, but in the end of the day, most of them probably won't, then, you know, if you're experienced, then you're not even going to start calculating, you'll just believe it. So I'm sort of wondering about these lines, but yeah, not sure. Takes here, queen b6, might go bishop d3, queen b4. Not sure really. I wouldn't really want to go. I mean, I don't really want to go b4. I don't want to weaken my my queenside structure unless it's really, you know, it's really just you know, making a concrete advantage. I mean, one move I quite like would be to play rook a3. I'm trying to think. Why am I thinking of Vishy Anand at this moment? I know why I'm thinking about Vishy Anand. The question is, can I find the game to show you? Dun, 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 dun. Bizarrely enough, it was a consultation game. It's a consultation game, and I'm not going to tell you the story right now. I'm going to have to tell you the story after. Wait a minute. I think that it's on my. I think it's on my website. Let me just another gratuitous plug. Of course, I don't write there as often as I should do, but let's have a look. I'm going to try and write a little bit more, actually, also engine stuff, but also other stuff. I mean, in general, I'm enthusiastic about two things, engine chess and also historical games. You know, there's masses of original analysis on Alekin's games here, as well as there's actually some really nice stuff, I think, some things that have never been seen elsewhere, and also about English players. So there's a huge amount on Fred Yates, very strong English player of the 1920s and 30s, and H.E. Atkins, an amateur who won the British Championship 9 times, I think, and extremely strong player. But enough about that. Just search for London Classic. It was yeah, so that's one of them. So at the London Classic, at the London Classic, every year we have a dinner. And it's there's GMs. The GMs from the London Classic tournament take on the rest. Take on lots of dinner tables, in actual fact, and those are mostly amateurs, people who've played to be at the dinner for supporting the charity, and it is also yeah, but there's also some strong players on those tables as well. It's great fun. It's great fun, and what I'm just looking for is one of those games. I mean, I've often been on the tables, being the supporting GM, and in actual fact, we have won an awful lot of games on my tables. Haha! But I'm just trying to find out. I was sure that it was on this table. It was an Alekins. No, it was a. Was it an Alekins or a Scandinavian? No, it was an Alekins defense. And it was. Searches on my site is not so fast. Sorry, I'll try and. Oh, there we are. There we are. Welcome. Curses. It doesn't seem to be there. Oh, this is. There's also a big section on Alekin Bogolubov from 1929. A big fan of Bogolubov, actually. Let me just put you back to the current game whilst I try and find this, and then we'll. I will show you exactly what I mean. Hopefully, it was a move that where John Spielman, as soon as I think I showed him the move, and then he said, "Did Vichy make that move?" And I said, "Wow, yes, he did." He said, "Ah, yeah, that's typical Vichy." So just just want to show you those things, but it's just a little bit where to find them. How did I even classify them? Well, I'll have a little look for them, and then obviously when I fail miserably, I'll just apologise. But these are quite nice things. The real problem is that the chess-based search is not particularly useful. You just love to be able to search on just general things, but it doesn't really. It never seems to work for me like that. I'm pretty sure it was 2013, so that's probably kind of useful to start looking at the dates. Oh, I've got too much analysis, that's the big problem. One day I will find it and share it with you, because it's a gorgeous thing. It was why have I got so much analysis? It was a gorgeous thing, and it was. I mean, I was saying this move Rook A3, and it was really one of those moves where actually Vichy did it with two rooks. He just consolidated a pawn with two rooks, and it looked really passive. But holding that pawn just was kind of the key to holding the whole position. You know, it was. It was a really beautiful move, and I know that this rook move feels a bit the same. You know, just sort of holding the pawn on c3, and you know, then getting out of the way of bishop g7, and the b4 pawn will be will be able to move freely. The funny thing was, it was a consultation game, so 12 different grandmasters coming round and playing a move individually, and then Vichy played this incredibly deep move. Which really thought, wow, what a move! This is really great. And then, but obviously that was the only move he played on our board. So the next, time somebody else comes around, again a very strong grandmaster, and he looks at it and plays the rook away. Just impossible to keep a line in that sort of chess, which is why we often manage to why the grandmasters often end up with a very poor score across the whole simultaneous. But I mean, something like Rook A3 maybe is interesting. But I mean, Black doesn't look too bad really. I mean, something like Queen B6 to meet B4 with Knight E4 again. I mean, this does not look bad at all. I mean, yeah, Black can't really be too unhappy with this. Yeah, I mean, it's all very interesting. I mean, this bishop is really annoying. Just The knight on f3 here. The bishop on e2 can't move. But then when you chase it away, suddenly it's okay just to exchange it, and then the d4 pawn is weak. It's yeah, interesting. I don't really know. I don't really have a feeling for where white should have played better. Maybe you wonder a little bit. I mean, you wonder a little bit. Maybe you should have just tried to put the rook. Played a move like this earlier, so that after takes you can take with the rook, because now the rook's defended, so c5 doesn't work anymore, and really put pressure on the pawn on a6 and clamp down on c5. Or by the same token, yeah, I mean b4 is a similar sort of thought that you might have to sort of clamp down on c5, but I'm not 100% sure that this wouldn't be okay for black. I mean, you take here maybe. I can go bishop c7, but then I go queen e7, and yeah, these pawns are getting wrecked again. So that's probably not good, but maybe a move like knight b3, just a modest little move. C5 is not good there because I just take, and well, actually here, well, I mean, I can do this. I can sort of claim that that this is sort of fine for me. At the very least, black's going to struggle to get this b6 pawn back, which should be enough for an edge somehow, you would have thought. And just really try and hold it, and then later we're going to play rook e1. The only awkward thing always is that as soon as this knight moves b3, the bishop can't leave e2 because f3 is hanging. And it's a little bit hard to know what you're going to do with this knight. I mean, maybe you should be playing it into to e5 and going for these exchanges, but the problem with that is, I mean, let's just say some random move. Well, you can see actually with this pressure here, it's not 100% easy for black to move. But let's say this move bishop d5 again. Although there I could maybe just go ab and then rook takes a6. Yeah, that's the problem actually, that I probably can't do that because you're just going to take on f3 and come queen h4. So another irritating thing, but I might want to just get this knight out of the way, but probably stuff like this is just a little bit awkward for white. This bishop's an absolute monster. Makes you think that you should be moving this knight out of the way maybe, and trying to play bishop f3, for example. That would be very sensible. You've got to watch out for this e5 break and take there. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe you have to to play really cautiously, get your bishop out of the way, and then try and play knight d2. It could be something like that. Could be possible, but yeah, I'm not getting any vibes about that we're talking about serious advantage for white here, and yeah, it kind of surprises me because I would have thought that. I would really have thought that that white was building up a very nice position here, really, in the opening, and instead it just just completely equal. I think we really should have something in the UCI protocol that that Stockfish could start approaching Leela for a draw, and start saying stuff like, "Are you playing for a win?" or that sort of thing. It's because Stockfish thinks it's dead level, but Leela, generous Leela, is just giving Stockfish the benefit of the doubt. So yeah, I mean, extra double pawn for white, but nothing really huge. I mean, always for, if a human had this against Stockfish, you'd still be on the nervous side, but But yeah, I mean, in principle, it should be. You just keep your queen active, and it should be working all right. Let's have a look at those PVs. What are we looking at? Stockfish thinking. Obviously, it's an obvious move, so Stockfish will think for a long time. Probably not the most impressive PV that that Stockfish has ever produced there. Wrecking your own kingside and then allowing extra possibilities for perpetual check feels a little bit weird. And what's Leela doing? Leela's PV looks a little bit more human, really. You know, sort of things that a human would try. But again, you're seeing you know, active queen. That's the way that you hold it. It's easy to get confused as a human. I mean, that's always the point. But yeah, here it looks like Leela's not expecting very much to happen. So Leela, time to go into the draw zone, where Stockfish is waiting for you with open fins, ready to shake the handshake of peace. So yeah, interesting. So what is the next opening then? What's the next opening? Let me just have a look in the back cave to see what the next opening is. I think the next opening is, because Jeroen's always good at giving hints. It's 5 moves. 5 moves and led to some pretty sharp games, I have to say, with chances for both sides. So well, hopefully that will be the case as well in this game. So I'm just looking through. Stockfish, of course, has had some great games as well. Oh, good lord, yeah. Good old Stockfish. So promoting to a knight on g8 on move 26. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you know, decent chances for a sharp game, 5-ply, and we'll see how it goes. I have got some yeah, there are some openings I'm really looking forward to in the yeah, a little bit later in the match. So yeah, some of the ones I think could be really interesting, but not sure, and some other ones are really quite nice, I think. So and maybe kind of interesting or important rather for opening theory in general. So yeah, got a few nice ones coming in. I know Jeroen has 2 as well. There's one that Jeroen's really looking forward to, I think. So yeah, we're going to see how that goes. In the draw zone. In the draw zone. In the draw zone. You can draw the game with ease in the draw zone. Let the chat adjudicate in the draw zone. In the draw zone. Let's have a look. So 0.12, that's looking really good. Stockfish on 0-0. So yeah, just hoping for not too many pawn moves. Well, Stockfish's PV is pretty good after move 43. Leela's is pretty good too, so you never know. You could have 10-ply of no pawn moves. That would be interesting. That would be nice, and then I could have a little look to see how it's all going with the yeah, with the next opening. What's Leela's time look like this time? Yeah, again, very fast, way faster than Stockfish. So, but yeah, you can't really argue with the result. It's extremely impressive. I have to say, I'm really quite impressed with the way Leela played this. I mean, this was very quiet from Stockfish, of course. So you know, it gives Black some leeway for. It does actually give you some leeway for different methods of development, but I have to say E6 and knight E7 is not one that would have occurred to me straight away. I mean, often knight H6 to F5 is played, but yeah, it's sort of like a hippo, but you've exchanged off the D pawns. Really, I'm impressed at how restrained Stockfish is. Really, so again, I hadn't really expected that from Stockfish, but yeah, it just looks like such a pleasant position for White. And then this move, you just take on A5. Was Stockfish expecting it as well? Actually, is that? No, Stockfish wasn't expecting it. Oh, interesting. In this position, Stockfish was expecting this line. That we were looking at. B4, C5, AB, Bishop C7. I don't want to play Bishop D3. Oh my goodness, that was quite a sharp line from Stockfish. Wow, wow! Look at this. A whole rook sacrificed, and then. Queen F6, Rook D1, B2. Oh, what's happened there? And we've got this sort of typical situation where, yeah, you've got Rook and 4 versus Rook Bishop and 2. Bishop's wrong coloured square for the Rook's pawn, so probably quite an easy draw. But what an amazing PB! Yeah, Leela's was much calmer there. So. Interesting. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, it's very logical. Stockfish's PV, you know, really to try and clamp down on the queen side with B4. But yeah, it just looks like Black's development is okay. Yeah, slightly surprises me because you know, Black's gone Queen takes D5 back to D8. So, I mean, kind of wasting some tempi there. So I'd always expect Black to be struggling to, you know, to get in its breaks this early, but yeah, seems like it manages fine. Oops, good lord, sorry, I'm scrolling in the wrong place. I meant to press that button. So all looking good. Yeah. Could well be that Leela's going to spend a long time thinking. It's got loads of time, so why not? But does it know that we chatters are impatient for the next game? So yeah, I mean, looking at the match as a whole, the first 32 games we're going to have 16.5, 15.5 to Stockfish. So yeah, Stockfish slight lead. I think that's you know kind of well deserved, really. You know, great start from Stockfish, but you know, a bit of a blunder from Leela really in the opening. But then, yeah, you know, Leela hit back. Yeah, this game, yeah, I mean, you saw really the two different types of defence here, really, didn't you? Because Stockfish sacrificed the exchange, active play, held, and Leela sort of just went for a pretty solid yeah, somewhat difficult hold, but yeah, made it quite well. Wait a minute, am I looking at the right screen here? Oh, good lord, absolutely the wrong one. I'm on the wrong browser. There we are. Sorry. So, wait a minute, games. Let's get the games right and get the schedule. So, yeah, I mean, these Queen's Gambit declined. Stockfish, sacrificing active play, and Leela, yeah, a much more, you could say, uncomfortable hold, I think. It's then you're surprised that Leela, didn't manage to beat Stockfish in a check Benoni, but again, Stockfish defending super actively, and then Leela going for the hold again and failing. So yeah, and then this excellent ending again. Well, this was an excellent ending, but another excellent ending from Stockfish against Leela. So yeah, 3-1. That was pretty a pretty good start, deserved start. Yeah, I mean, we've had a run of draws. Yeah, here Stockfish definitely could have put away Leela with that move 16g4. These disappointed me a little bit. I really thought we get some typical Grunfelds, but with a good version for white. These were very solid, really. Neither side really made much impression, I think. Yeah, the St. George's defense, again, that amazes you. You give away... I mean, you really give away a pawn on move 3, for some sort of nebulous compensation. But in fact, neither engine really made much impression. Maybe Leela was kind of pressing against Stockfish, but it didn't really last that long. It was very very strange. I mean, these Dutch games were again relatively solid, I suppose, but there was some, yeah, in both of them there was some great tactical play. Just Leela's line. I mean, I really do love this one. This move, knight h2 here, and then f4 was really quite incredible. Just a beautiful way of getting all of its pieces just activated just in time, so that it, so that everything's in its place. That was really very beautiful. Even if unfortunately the result is that the white position gets neutralized, but still. Yeah, then we had our this modern defense, which this was very disappointing. Neither game caught fire, and I don't really understand how that's possible, because yeah, there were pretty sharp games in my test games. But then with Jeroen's opening here, English opening, yeah, a rather dodgy one from a Kramnik attempt. Yeah, very Basmanic, really. Quite a weak pawn on g4, and both Leela and Stockfish, in their own ways, just managed to exploit this very nicely. So yeah, I mean, that was extremely good. And then I like this game very much, of Leela against Stockfish. Really a very nice, typical French position. Pawn sacrificed on d4, and then, yeah, Leela just played beautifully, really, and just Stockfish just somewhere around here got the wrong defense, and then it was too late. Just a double pawn sacrifice, picking up the exchange, and then a beautiful, or a really well worked out appreciation of what you needed to do, which is basically swap off the dark squared bishop, get rid of black's active bishop, and just leave black with all these pieces that are sort of hanging on to each other desperately. It was a really beautiful game from Leela, really great. Yeah, really good. And yeah, Stockfish didn't manage to do the same to Leela. Leela was definitely under pressure, but held that. This one, Sicilian Najdorf. Yeah, I mean, just Stockfish again managed to just give up a pawn and hang on in an active ending. And Leela just played the middle game, actually, and just got this type of structure quite early, and then just sat there, and that was enough. Yeah, sort of strange, really, in some ways. But and then we got these French Tarraches that we saw at the beginning of the stream, which I think were very good fun. They could have gone either way, I think. Particularly Stockfish White against Leela. I think this was a very interesting game. But yeah, just a draw, and then yeah, Leela against Stockfish. Scandinavian was a draw. I have a feeling that there was more for Leela in that one, but and then here I think Leela's played. Yeah, I think Leela's played quite beautifully to hold the draw. You know, certainly was not obvious at all. But what am I? How strange. What am I looking at here? Hello. Why am I seeing that? Oh, good lord. Okay, that's the reason why. Because I'm looking at the wrong browser again. Whack. There we are. Cancel. So yeah, I mean, this is very impressive play from Leela. You know, just to hold it like this. So unfortunately, Stockfish playing a lot of pawn moves now. But yeah, I mean, what can you say? It's just very good play. It's tough in a way. You'd like the engines to play badly from time to time just to create some imbalance and wins, but on the other hand, you also want them to play as well as possible. So I guess you just have to accept some draws. But I think we've got definitely got some openings that are going to create, provide some really exciting games and some wins as well. So yes, Leela, you're not going to think in the opening, but you are going to think about King F7 for minutes and minutes. I mean, if you look at Stockfish's PV, it looks like Stockfish is doing everything to be helpful, really, to to give Leela a draw by perpetual. But yeah, I'm going to take a little while before it all happens. Let's have a look. I think I've done quite a bit, really. Recapped all the games and the match so far, and also looked at this one. I think what I'll do, I'll just break the stream here, and then I'll keep a little eye out for what happens. If the game finishes quickly, then I'll start up the stream again, and maybe can have a quick look at the at what's coming up and the next opening, and then otherwise I'll if it's going to last another hour or something, then I'll probably end up streaming a bit tomorrow. So thanks very much, everyone, for watching. Oh, actually, I come to think of it, I've been very remiss. I've barely looked at all at the comments there. Yeah, TeamNet, there are going to be King's Indians, absolutely. Quite a few, actually, and certainly a few good ones. I'm pretty sure about that. So opening is next. Oh, I'm not going to say the opening. Should never say the opening, but 5 moves and yeah, I think plenty of scope for the engines to develop their own plan.